Often talked before how many of us are challenged in adult life from the traumas we suffered when we were younger. And those traumas can look all different ways. It doesn't have to be something major. It could have been something that you may have heard as a kid. And now you have a limiting belief. Now let's look at it even deeper from a male perspective. Men dealing with those challenges. A lot of times men are told to just suck it up, be a man. We hold a lot in. And that's where this gentleman comes in to help those men as a director and psychotherapist and also a men's life coach. Rolando Hyman is back with us. Welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, Steve. It's good to be here again. I really enjoy our talks, and I'm hoping that, the men who follow and listen, it will encourage them to, get on board with doing some practical work towards change.
It is work. We can't deny that. But then I look at everything we do in life. I don't mean this as a negative, but it's work no matter what. There you meditate, let's just say. What comes with that? They call it breathing work because you have to work at it. And I guess things that are worth working at improve you. Your breathing. If you nail that, you're in a better place. Even your relationships, doing something on the weekend, getting a bunch of people together. It's work. Can't lie. It's work, coordinating all of that, for a fun event or even just a gathering of, let's say half dozen people. For men in these challenges, do you still feel that many men keep this stuff inside?
100%, Steve. One of the things that we look at as we work with men is that there are some things that culture does not subscribe to. So culturally, depending on my geographical location or my ethnic background, there are certain things that I'm expected to not do because in doing it, I'm not accepted as a positive role model to be a man. And so, because of that, Steve, I prefer to hold things in. I prefer to not talk about it. I prefer to not express emotions because if I do, sometimes I'll appear to be weaker than the average. All right.
Hmm.
One of the pieces that we talk about in that is the original practice of hegemonic masculinity, where a male is supposed to be dominant and strong and he's more powerful than everybody else, is what a lot of cultures celebrate, which is grounded in the patriarchal belief of how you're supposed to be as a man. So, man were not allowed to be human. Men were not allowed to show weakness. Men are not allowed to ask for help of any kind because you're a man, suck it up, buttercup. Be strong, be tough. Okay. So we want to start with dealing with confronting some of the cultural norms if we are going to heal.
Do you feel that there are times where men are taken advantage of in relationships? And I don't just mean just the romantic, just in general, because they kind of know that a man is going to hold it inside or not react to it.
Surely, surely, and oftentimes, Steve, what I've learned and I've seen is for fear of being seen as not good enough
Hmm.
or as weak, men are taken advantage of. Sometimes when a man is in that space where if he speaks out in his relationship, sometimes even the partner that he's with makes him feel that he's not man enough if he speaks up too much because the partner was taught by whoever they were groomed by as it relates to the nature nurture component. So maybe that person saw their dad being this guy who bury things, don't talk, suffer in silence. Now she meets a guy who says, hey, you know what? I'm vindicated. I'm okay with expressing emotions. Instead of her seeing that as a strength, it's perceived as a weakness. So then her expressions to her partner or this person's expressions to their partner is that you're not man enough because you're weak.
Hmm. And that's painful to a man's ego.
It is, man. It is.
So I want to share. I'm trying to remember if I brought this up last time we got together, but I hear more and more in seminars, teaching for men, a lot of different groups that as a man, don't show emotion. Now, that goes against what we're saying here because we want men, or theoretically, we want men to show emotion. You're real, it's vulnerable. Don't keep it, bottled up inside. But to be very careful about how you show the emotion because of a lot of the things that you just said. And especially, I'm going to be honest, in things that I've heard in, reading and such, um, that in your relationships, let's say it's with a woman, that it will be used against you if you show emotion because it's, you're a car, you're the man, car's moving down the road, you show emotion. Now the car is kind of swerving all over the place. What are your thoughts on that?
Steve, that's such a powerful question because, you know, men, we are, and this is what I'm saying, Steve. I'm challenging every man who is listening to this podcast right now, or they're watching it, the pre-recording, to be okay to become a catalyst for change, which means you've got to be okay to open yourself up and change the original perception of weakness. We have to change the meaning of weakness by confronting the societal norm and expectation and standing up and be authentic. All right. And the thing, Steve, why as men oftentimes we engage in certain behaviors, especially oftentimes self-sabotaging behaviors, is because of the fear that we are falling out of line with the documentation that was handed down to us from generation to generation. So we have to seek to be catalysts of change by recognizing that, hey, I'm a man, but I'm not a machine. I'm not something that is generated through an AI component. I am also an emotional creature, and I'm proud of that piece. There's nothing to be ashamed of. And if you're in a relationship with someone who makes you feel that you're not man enough because you are being human or authentic, then I would subscribe that the relationship needs a reset.
Love that. Is it reasonable to think if a man is going to show emotion I know I'm getting granular here, but
Yeah.
to define his terms first in his mind. This is what I'm, this is my terms for this relationship. We'll just center on relationship. This is what I'm good with.
Mhm.
And that kind of dictates where it's going to go in terms of, his emotion, what he's going to show. What are your thoughts on that?
Steve, every relationship, there needs to be what I call a safe space in every relationship for all parties involved to be able to be true to themselves and to the person that they're with.
Hmm.
And the issue sometimes, Steve, with relationships is that there are so many different uh, issues that each person is dealing with. And that's why sometimes people step away from their relationship. That's not the only reason why, but sometimes there is no emotional connection. Emotional intelligence is void, whether it's on one party's part or both parties' part. So those conversations don't happen. And because the lack of having a safe space for those conversations to happen, there's a void in the relationship. And each person continues to seek to find a space where they can actually process those emotions and be validated for processing those emotions versus being seen as having a void or being seen as someone who is not strong enough to be with somebody else.
It can be a big challenge if, let's go hypothetical. Let's say man is in relationship with woman. He says something about the relationship. Again, I'm going terms. These are the boundaries. This is what I'll accept. This is really not what I'll accept. He brings it up to her. She gets defensive. He backs down. Now he's not being authentic and true to himself, and he's just going with the flow. But now that stuff is all bottled inside, and deep down inside, he knows this is not me. I'm not being me
Mhm.
because I sucked it up, if you will, because I got opposition from the other side. And he was being just general. He was being genuine in terms of how he felt, uh, because he felt out of sorts. This is not the way I think the relationship should go. How does a man handle that? I think that happens a lot where he's not picking a fight. He just wants it to be more what he thinks it should be. But then his partner either doesn't want to talk about it or gets defensive, and then it's complete shutdown.
Yeah. Truth be
How?
told, if there's no clarity around what relationship expectations are, then those conversations are going to be hard. It's going to be hard to engage in those conversations with somebody else who they themselves are not quite sure as it relates to where they'd like to go. An example of that is Steve, let's say it this way. If one person's ideal of who a man is supposed to be was role played for them by their dad or their uncle or their stepdad or whoever, caregiver, an older brother. And this perceived idealness of a masculine figure is seen as the only way, they sort of carved out in stone way of how you're supposed to be as a man. When this person enters into a relationship and someone shows up that's asking for something outside of that preference, then there's going to be resistance. And
Hmm.
so to address that, there's got to be a deliberate, and I say deliberate, intentional move on both part where I'm able to say, hey, if I really care about this person, and if I really want this person to be a part of my life, the other partner's got to go back and revisit the ideal idea that they have to see if maybe there's room to improve on that. And if a man shows up and this is what he's saying, these are my expectations, and the person with whom he's sharing that information with is not in a space to receive it, he has got to respectfully get out of there. Okay? Which
Hmm.
means he has got to recognize it for what it is. And Steve, you're so right, because there are a lot of men who they get into this space in their head where they're telling themselves, but if I lose this person, what am I going to do? And I challenge man a lot, Steve, and I say this to men, the woman has got to be more than face and physique. There's got to be more to it than that. And if you are saying, she is drop dead gorgeous, she's a goddess, I don't see myself not having her, but her beauty does not go further than face and physique. There's no heart and no head to connect with you where you're at, to offer that emotional stability, that emotional space of safety where you guys can go in sync, then there's got to be a conversation. How do we get there?
Or do you ever get there? Yeah. Thank you for making that clear. And yes, okay, let's say it. And it's been done in research, surveys, studies that men have a fear of being alone.
Mhm.
So, they're with somebody, and to your point, let's say, that she's beautiful, but it kind of ends right there. Now he's got a need for physical intimacy as well. So maybe that's part of what's going on here. But then it's not as good as it could be, probably because you don't have a real emotional connection, if that be the case. And it's time to buy. I think it goes back to your terms. What are my terms for life and the relationship? What do I need to be happy?
Mhm,
And don't bend from them, because so
mhm.
many times we bend because we want to make everybody happy. And then right there, I believe you're not being true to yourself at that point.
Yeah, yeah. And Steve, let me say to you this way, because a lot of us as men, we're afraid to have tough conversations. Why? Because we believe if we engage in certain conversations, we're compromising our masculinity. So tough conversations oftentimes that involves relationship choices and knowing when to step away, knowing when to let go, not ignoring red flags. And a lot of men, Steve, what we do is we tend to ignore red flags rather, because of our fear of being alone. And so we enter into a lot of relationships that they oftentimes become codependent. Because here I am, and I'm so busy, always doing everything in my power to make sure that the other person is happy, but I'm not, right? My needs are not being fulfilled. But then I say to myself, hey, I I can't see myself living my life without this person. Versus recognize that, hey, wait a minute, a relationship takes two people to
Hmm.
work. And if
Hmm.
I'm always depositing and never withdrawing, and withdrawal, I'm not talking about sexual intimacy now, guys. I want to get real with you. I'm talking about what other needs are being fulfilled for you in the relationship. And so I challenge men, Steve, a lot, and I try to be gentle as much as I possibly can. But I challenge men to move away from that piece where you're saying the only thing that you need or you're okay. No, the relationship has got to go deeper than that.
Ring the Rolando bell, because that is it's there it is. And you're right about the red flags because of many different reasons. But in my journey, I have learned that somebody, when you first meet them, reveals everything about them. You're just not paying attention because let's say you meet this beautiful woman. She's well off. She's the angel from the sky. It's all right there. It's fantastic. She's wonderful. Oh, this is good. Yeah. Wow. Great. She's telling you who she is. She's telling
Mhm,
you.
mhm,
You're not listening because this you're looking at other things at that moment, emotionally, physically, whatever it might be.
mhm. Steve, what I've got to remember as men, and I'm going to say something that's probably a bit problematic. But Steve, external beauty, you can buy that anywhere. External beauty you can purchase at a cosmetic store. You can do surgery. Internal beauty is something that you've got to learn to build. Okay? It's let's say it this way. Internal beauty is not something that you can purchase in a dollar store. You have to go to a high-end store to get that. All right? External beauty, you can pick that up anywhere and everywhere. Yes, some persons may say, well, I paid a lot to get my face done, my butt lift, my boobs, whatever.
Hmm.
But that's all external. It has got to go deeper than that. Okay. And you will know real beauty internally from the utterances and the displays and the way that the person relates to themselves and to yours and to you as well. Okay. So we have got to be mindful of that. And oftentimes as men, Steve, that's why our mental wellness is compromised because we are not paying enough attention, number one, to ourselves, and
Mm.
number two, to the warning signs, because we believe that, I can fix it.
It's
I
a
can.
really great point you bring up there because I believe that most men are wired to fix. We're fixers.
Mhm,
There could be a challenging conversation situation with you and your partner, and you want to fix it and then move on. And sometimes it can't be fixed. Sometimes it takes more than a conversation to fix it. But if we can't fix it, we there's frustration that comes into play. And then I think invariably what happens after that, there's shutdown. Just all
Yeah.
right, just I'll let it go. Just get
Yeah.
fix it another day. I'll come back to that.
Yeah. And Steve, if I can borrow a line from Kenny Rogers, he said this, know when to walk, know when to
No,
hold, all
no,
right?
know when to
Yeah,
fold.
yeah, know when to walk away and know when to run. End of quote. So
Mm,
that's the issue that many of us have as men. We've got to learn and know when it's time to walk away
mm.
because your mental health is your responsibility. You don't blame your condition, your present condition, because of what somebody else did. We've got to remember this, Steve, that one of the greatest gifts that we have as men is the gift of choice. You choose to stay or you choose to run. You choose to work on it or you choose to give it up. You choose to remain silent and suffer in silence, or you choose to assert yourself, speak out, and access supports so that you can heal.
And you choose the way you react.
Yeah.
So let's say somebody is not being authentic or triggering you intentionally.
Mhm.
You can go off on the deep edge and get angry and ballistic, or you can, that doesn't support me. I'm going to walk away from that. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
absolutely.
It's all a choice. You're 100% right. Um, Rolando, how do we engage you? Guys, going through things, trauma, need a connection. How do we find you?
Steve, you can find me. You can go to my website. It's xyspark.org. You can email me, hyman@xyspark.org. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on YouTube. Message me anywhere of those places. But the one thing I've got to say, Steve, is this, is that we have to remember, guys, that personal development is not an event. It's a lifestyle. And if you want to experience that lifestyle, the important piece is this, you need to connect with someone who can show you how to make this lifestyle a reality.
I can say firsthand that I I'm on that journey. It's an evolution, but I'm so glad I started making those changes. And it was based out of a change in life, but so good. Like you see life in a different way. You feel more connected with yourself. Um, but you need to keep your boundaries up there too. But that helps you learn all of that too. Rolando, great having you on here. Great talking today. Love your insight, and it's all real stuff, man. So yeah, definitely get your spark back. That's what we're talking about. And
Yes.
looking forward next time we get together. Thanks again.
Thank you, Steve. See you later.